Hello class. Today is Tuesday, the Science Live Day, and this is a pre-recorded video. I'm going to be going over today's objective, which is what are severe storms and how can we prepare for them. Do now, write a reaction to the events in the video. And here is the video. So that was the video introduction, which showed all the types of severe weather, severe storms that can impact just the environment and human population, from hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning and ice storms, snow, and even severe drought. So what are severe storms? They're caused by a very intense low pressure system. So you see the wind swirling in a counterclockwise direction. Thunderstorms occur when a moist, warm air is rising quickly, and the warm air rises because it is less dense. The friction of raindrops builds an electric charge, cause lightning. And then the thunder is the sound of all the air molecules hitting back together once the lightning is over. The sudden heating and expansion of air due to lightning causes the air to collapse back on itself, creating the sound of thunder. A mid-latitude cyclone. They move from west to east across the United States due to the jet stream. The jet stream will determine whether it goes north or south, and the rotation of the earth causes these actual weather motions to go from the west coast like California over to the east coast towards New York. These storms are sometimes called nor'easters because the wind blows to the northeast. And we get them usually in March. We get these nor'easters, and we get them sometimes in the late fall, and they bring a lot of cold, windy days with either intense wind and intense rain, and sometimes it turns to snow. A hurricane. Hurricanes are powerful low-pressure systems that form over the tropical ocean in the maritime tropical air mass. The center of that hurricane will be called the eye, and it's rotating in this counterclockwise direction, swirling in, creating intense waves, a storm surge, lots of wind, rain, and even lightning. Hurricanes will gain their strength from warm water. They lose strength rapidly when moving over land or cooler water. So usually when the storm gets into land, it will slow down, there will be less wind, and it'll break apart and lose its structure. When the hurricane gets up to the North Atlantic and the maritime polar air masses over there, it will cool off and it will lose its energy, and you can get less winds, less intense damage, but you're still getting the large waves and some wind. A small area of sinking air in the center is called the eye of the hurricane. Here is the intensity scale called the Saffir-Simpson scale from 1 to 5. 5 is the most damage with winds over 155 miles an hour. And number 1 is the lowest damage and lowest wind speed. A storm cannot be called a hurricane. It will not be named a hurricane unless the winds reach that 74 mile per hour range. Most hurricane damage occurs in coastal areas by large waves and rise in sea level. It's called the storm surge. So it's not just one wave coming in, it's just that this area of water will be about 5 feet deeper. So if it's 5 feet deeper here, it's going to cover 5 feet over this land, which could extend for miles. So the storm surge is not just a wave, it's actually a wall of water, extra water moving in. Hurricane Sandy impacted, the whole Northeast. A cold front met the storm and strengthened it to a superstorm strength. And there was also a full moon that night and increased the tides, the height of the tides. The storm coming from the south of Long Island caused the storm surge to be at the max, creating insane flooding. Lower Manhattan was under 15 feet of water. The subways filled with water. Sandy was technically not a hurricane when it hit land, so they made it called a superstorm, and that superstorm gave it financially. New York could be declared a state of emergency, and people could get their flood insurance because it was a superstorm, even though it was not a hurricane. Tornadoes. Tornadoes are the most powerful storms on Earth. They're called a cyclone, or a funnel cloud, or a twister, a typhoon, even a whirlpool. Winds can exceed 300 miles per hour. A tornado is more intense winds than a hurricane, but it's a much smaller storm, so it doesn't impact as wide a geographic area. So the damage from a tornado may only be 1 to 3 miles wide and extend for 10, 15 miles, but that's all. A hurricane can be 500-600 miles in diameter and can impact the entire east coast of the continental United States. So even though a hurricane has less winds, it's much bigger, so it can cause more damage. A tornado is much smaller, so it can cause very intense, severe damage in a smaller area. A tornado strength is measured with the Fujita scale, which is going from F0 to F5. F0, light damage, small tornado, up to an F5, incredible damage, catastrophic. It can rip a house up and fly it away and destroy it in seconds. So let's be prepared. In a typical year, you'll get 6 major hurricanes. You'll get 1,270 tornadoes. New York is very low risk for tornadoes. The further to the south and Midwest that you get, there'll be more tornadoes. We're going to get 5,000 floods. Flooding can be a problem in New York. 10,000 violent thunderstorms. For New York, it will be more in August and July in the late afternoon. You'll get drought conditions, and you get 500 deaths, 5,000 injuries, and $14 billion in lost, damaged money. So here's a general review. What to do in the event of a tornado. Go to the basement or the lowest level. Stay away from the windows and doors. In a flood, move to higher ground, like a tsunami. Put sandbags to protect your homes. In your general safety, what can you do in any kind of severe weather or any kind of severe emergency? Evacuate. Go to an emergency shelter. Always have good supplies of clean drinking water, power, like a generator, food, emergency medical kits, medications, and there's a lot of other things you could add to that. Listen to your local radio and TV stations for updated storm information. Most important is to use your common sense. So do what you think is right. And here is the final part.
January 2017, we had gone.
What is going on here? Sorry, it's not working. Let's see if I try that again. Okay, here you go. So this is a 4-minute video.
The notion that a drought in Indonesia or the Philippines could be caused by the same conditions that produce torrential rains in the United States, Peru, and Chile might appear to the casual observer to defy logic. But in fact, that's exactly what can happen during the extraordinary chain of events known as El Niño.
El Niño is the appearance from time to time of warm water in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. Normally, there's a pool of warm water in the western Pacific, and that's because of the way the earth turns and the winds blow. Water piles up in the western part of the basin. The sea level along Indonesia and the Philippines is higher by 60, 50 centimeters than it is off the coast of Peru. So what happens is the winds keep blowing, the water piles up, it heats up in the western part of the Pacific. But then once in a while, it could be every 2 years apart, it could be 10 years apart, that wind weakens and that warm water that's piled up sloshes back towards the central and eastern Pacific. Where the warm water is where you get your evaporative processes, evaporation, and clouds that produce rainfall.
Now that has an effect locally, as you can imagine. Ordinarily, with all those rain clouds over Indonesia, there's a lot of rain in that region. There's rain over Australia. It's fairly dry in the east. During an El Niño, when you've got all this convective precipitation over the east, it can rain a lot in that region. You can have flooding in Peru. Conversely, you have drought over Indonesia and Australia. It can also have effects pretty far away, and the reason that happens is the atmosphere can support these wave-like motions. It's just like dropping a pebble in a stream. Although the pebble is at one little place, you know the ripples can go very far away. So those ripples can extend, say, over North America and change how the weather patterns over North America are.
How much of what you're telling us today about El Niño being renewed?
In recent years, El Niño events have become the focus of intense scrutiny and discussion, not only among scientists, but within the ranks of the media and the general public as well.
So the El Nino is a short-term climatary change, and what happens is it can cause changes in the weather from all the way from Indonesia even to here in New York. We're going to do more of that next week. Your assignments for this week are to do this Google form, which is on hurricanes. So it's a short reading assignment and explains all about this formation, causes, and what happens during a hurricane. And then there's just some short answer questions. The second part of the assignment for this week is to do this Google form, which has the multiple choice questions. And these multiple choice questions will go along with the reading. So do your best, and I'll be posting an assignment about this video on Google Classroom as a discussion, and I'll be here for you if you have any questions. Good luck. Take care and be safe.